it. Right, so good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us again this week. We have a really great talk for you this afternoon. I'm joined by the lovely Caroline Taylor, who is also known worldwide as the Slim Pet Vet. You definitely are, as the Slim Pet Vet, and we're going to be talking about all things to do with your dog's weight management, why it's important that we're aware of our dog's weight, and a lot more added in between. I've got a few questions already that I'm going to be asking Caroline. But obviously questions are welcomed even after the session. Let me know and I'll pass them on to Caroline, or you can ask her yourself because she's got brilliant resources with her. Sorry, the parrots are doing it again, with her website and Facebook and group as well. So I'm going to ask Caroline to introduce yourself properly rather than my garbled version. So welcome, lovely to talk to you, Caroline. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm very pleased to be able to share my passion about dogs and weight and other animals because, it doesn't, I actually started off as a mixed practice vet and spent a good few years working exclusively with the horses. And unfortunately, overweight pets and overweight animals is not just about the dogs in our lives. Unfortunately, horses can be really badly affected too, and of course for them the main risk factor is then developing something called laminitis, which means they can hardly walk and on their front legs, and sometimes they need to be put to sleep for that condition, unfortunately. So in some ways dogs are lucky because if they are carrying a few pounds, then they can still get around. But yeah, I've been a vet in the UK for nearly 20 years. Scarily, I went back recently to my old vet school, and it was things had changed so much down in London and at the vet school there. But I mean, from really early on, I think I was surprised that the number of times that I would go to a house visit and to, obviously it's part of our job, unfortunately, to help dogs at the end of the road of their lives. But often the dogs that couldn't get up or couldn't walk around, yes, they had arthritis or they had these other conditions, but there was something that had led to that, that they had been carrying around this extra weight for all those extra years of their lives. And I just felt like, yes, we do. Fantastic. If you want help and advice, then, you often the services that vets and veterinary nurses will provide within practice will be free. They're there for you. But the problem is that these days they are so busy that getting an appointment to talk to them is just so difficult. And actually the time that they have to dedicate to these wellness services is just being squeezed because, as we know, there's been a huge, fantastic. I love it that people have got, new pets and new dogs in their lives. It's absolutely brilliant because, that the magical, I think that's what makes me so happy to be a vet, because, that I witness every day, that magical bond that people have with their animals. And that's, and I think that it comes out of love, doesn't it? Often,
always out of love, but yeah.
You don't purposefully set out to have your dog over their ideal body weight, and maybe you just think, oh well, they look a bit cute when they've got a few extra rolls and they're well looked after, but where does that end? Often I have that excuse, well, there's a few people, people see their dogs now coming out of a car. Oh, well, yeah, I know my dog's a little bit overweight, but I wouldn't let them get like that, and it's sort of like, well, hang on, where do you draw the line? Surely just a little bit overweight there's something you can do about that. And, that's where, that I'm passionate about, you can't necessarily affect, everyone out there, but equally, it's just has such a huge benefit. So yeah, I set up a Facebook group thinking there might be, a few hundred people that I might be able to help, and it's already a year on. We've got 1,000 members, and the amazing thing is that we have the stories where people have been following and following everything for a few months, and there's an opportunity for a body condition score every single month, and then a weigh-in every month. You don't have to do this, but to see it's that little bit of accountability to just check in, okay, what's happening this month, because a lot of the time I think people get a bit disappointed or disheartened. Well, I've cut the food down, or I've stopped these treats, and a few weeks later nothing's changed on the scales. But it's not what you do, is it, over a few weeks. It's often it takes it does take a few months.
It does.
But the benefits that you see, you don't often have to wait 3 or 4 months to see those benefits. Usually once even your dog has lost like 5% of their body condition or 5% of their weight, you already see them being a bit more lively, when they're playing, or they're more keen to run around. So that's why I do it, really, because it's such an amazing gift to be able to see these dogs moving and feeling so much better in themselves.
Yeah, so you don't just get the joy from the owner and what they're posting or what they're saying to you, saying, oh my God, thank you, my dog's done this and this, and look at how great they look. You also get to see the dogs and how much happier they are because they can return to doing the things that they used to do. And sometimes when our dogs, it's like when they get older, would you two stop shouting at me? Honestly, never have parrots in the same rooms when you're talking to them. It's a bit like when dogs get older, isn't it, as well? And dogs of any age putting on weight, because it happens slowly sometimes. They start slowing down on some of the things they used to do. We don't maybe notice so much that they're not playing as much as they did or as vigorously, or they might not want to mooch around the garden quite so much. And then suddenly they lose the weight and we go, oh my God, I haven't done that for ages. I hadn't even realised. And we start seeing it back again. You see the dogs are enjoying their lives.
Well, I think if it is, your dog is sort of getting, perhaps not into their teens, but even sort of 6, 7, 8, and then perhaps going down a bit, and you think, and you perhaps are a bit reluctant to go to see the vet because you don't want to have to put them on medication for the rest of their lives. But one of the most effective treatments for arthritis, if it is that, is weight loss.
Yes.
But that doesn't mean that you don't have to use the painkillers if they're having a bit of a flare-up, or to help you get to that point. Pain is notoriously difficult to diagnose and recognise in all animals. But it should be brought up each and every, when you're going for your annual vaccinations, or your annual titers, if people are going down that route, each year with their dog. But it is something that's, especially at the moment where vets have been not wanting to maybe upset you because it's often quite difficult for them to bring up. So if you are thinking, is my dog of the right body condition score? Is its body condition, is it normal? Then ask, because they will, vets will be delighted to be able to help explain where they are on the body condition skills card. And that's really the yes, get further advice. But once okay, and it's not just that we put a number on it, that actually helps us to determine, how long it's going to take to get down to an ideal body weight. Maybe you're not going to get to an ideal body weight, but your first target is just going to be to lose, a certain amount, if it's, a kilo or even, a few 100 grams. Can make a big difference to, often it's not down to, I remember my sister, they went on holiday for a week and their dog was a little Cavalier she's got, and he's only about 10 kilos and he gained a kilo in a week just because, and so unfortunately it's not going to take a week to lose that weight, because that you can only safely, it's going to be a lot harder for you to lose that weight within a week, and probably not something that's going to be necessarily the safest thing for your dog, because there are certain speeds, it's about 1% really, and aim for 1%, 2% is safe, But yeah, with 2% weight loss a week, you end up, getting a lot more of the difficulty managing some of the begging signs and things like that. So yeah.
So just to ask a little question, so you're talking about body condition scores, and trying to get them down to a certain weights or losing a certain amount. There was one question I've been asked by a lady who's got a mixed breed, so literally is both parents are different breeds, so it's quite a few. And so they've asked, and it is a general question as well, when you've got a mixed breed, how do you know what their ideal weight should be? Because there's no set standard or ideal.
Well, I mean, it's much more common, isn't it, in mostly poodle crosses, but yeah, Cavapoos and the breed standards. I mean, even within a breed, within a litter, you can have a huge variety of different sizes of dog, so. And actually, funnily enough, if you've got one of the smaller, runt of the litter, or the smaller dog, actually the smaller dogs are more prone to obesity than the dogs that were of a bigger size. Right. Of their birth weight. So it leads into things we know on the human side, that it's not just what happens when you're born. Some of these influences in terms of weight and how likely you are to gain or to be overweight are actually effects that happen in utero. So it's yes, some of the paths are set from a young age in terms of genes or environment, but there is things that you can have an influence on, neutering status, that will have a really big effect as well. So if you're looking at how do we know what a great, what weight, what is it a perfect weight for our dog, one of the good things is probably around the end of the growth period, around sort of a year to 18 months, pre-neutering. Obviously, we have got a growing number of dogs, unfortunately, who are overweight by the time they're a year old. But most of the time, the signs of being overweight start, at that sort of critical window. They finish their growth phase. They've then also been neutered. So there's lots of different reasons why their metabolic rate will change. And so the amount of feed that they were having is a lot less than what we thought they used to have, and yet you perhaps don't realize that change in their needs. Again, we know how much work a puppy is. They're running around all the time, they don't stop. And then as your dog matures, they chill out a bit more, they sleep more in the day. 16 hours a day is and the average number of hours that a dog needs to sleep in the day. So
nice.
That's why lazing around, that's what they're built for. Periods of high energy activity, or mooching around activity as well, but then actually sleeping a lot of the day, which would be very different to a puppy. So, or even a teenage dog. So in terms of breed, how do we recognize? I find I go off on a tangent. I'll try. The best thing to do, and I've mentioned it before, is about body condition scoring. So in my group, Slimline Canine, I do an opportunity to give people a body condition score from a photo. Now, there's limitations to that. You need to take the photo from the side, get down quite low, and then also from above. So what you look at is you're looking then in the photographs really for the abdominal tuck and whether there's a waist. Okay. Sometimes you can also see that there's extra fat buildup around the lumbar region, around the tail head. There's extra rolls of fat or thickened rolls of fat. Depending on the breed, it varies where they'll carry the extra weight, sometimes around the shoulders. So the pictures really are looking at the waist and the abdominal tuck, which is different because the abdominal tuck is from the side. So it is quite normal for your dog's abdomen to go up from the chest up into their back legs, not be straight across.
No.
But and that's often where you owners don't necessarily recognize that is it should be go up, because it can sort of, and it's a bit like thinking that, you know, there can be fat around the internal organs and things like that starts. You don't necessarily see it under the skin. Now, the pictures are very much limited to those two areas. What we really need to do is get our hands on and have a feel over the ribs. And I talk about the Knuckle Test. Have you heard about that? Where you're using place your hands in front of you with a flat hand, and then feel along here on your knuckles, and that's how your dog's ribs should feel. If they feel like that, really bony, then that's, you know, they're either too thin or they're a greyhound. If they feel, now turn your hand over, if they feel like that, so you can just about feel the ribs there, but there's a little bit of a sort of extra padding over the top of them, that's normally around sort of 6 or 7 out of 9 body condition score. And if you're just feeling them, if you feel in the middle there and you can't feel the ribs at all, then that's, you know, obviously way up further on that body condition score chart. So each of those will be, that's sort of a rule of thumb, you know, 5 out of, I use the 9-point scale. There is 5-point scales, but 9 tends to be easier. So you want them to be around 4 or 5 out of 9 to maintain their weight there. 6 out of 9 equals around 10% overweight, and then obviously upwards from there. And unfortunately, they've had to change the charts, some of the food companies now, that out there, because 9 out of 9 was not enough for many of them. In the clinic. So yeah, some dogs are 9 out of 9 equates to about 40% overweight, and above that is over, some dogs are 50% higher than they need to be. But you know, the amazing thing is that even just dropping 1 body condition score will significantly not only affect your dog's, you know, general welfare and lifestyle and happiness and ability to get around, but it will actually help them live longer as well.
Yeah, absolutely, definitely does. So the body condition score, now I know what you mean, and I also know what you mean about the fact that some of them are only 5, and I prefer the 9. For people watching that might not know what a body condition score is, could you, I know it's not easy to explain without seeing one. What I'll do is I'll put something out when I send the replay for this, so people can actually see what
so there are charts available. One of the nicest ones I think is the WSAVA charts, because it lists a little bit of it doesn't just have the pictures. Some of them are sort of a bit cartoony or stylized, and you know, you just have, you know, the body of a dog getting bigger and bigger, and it doesn't really give you the technique to show. So look at WSAVA, World Small Animal Veterinary Association chart. I mean, if you're interested, there's actually body condition score charts available for all different species, you know, horses.
Wow. Oh, I didn't know that.
Chameleons, you know, guinea pigs, rabbits. There's charts available for pretty much, because it's often, you know, it's looked at in zoo animal species, and different species will carry fat within different areas, sometimes around the tail and that sort of thing. So there's
look. I'm gonna look it up.
They are available for all different species, and they're similar, I guess, to, you know, there are limitations to them. You know, it's not it's an objective. It's subjective rather than being objective. But at least if you can sort of, and the other thing is, even if you're trained to do body condition scoring, when it's your own dog, it's quite likely that you'll be more generous than you need to be on the chart. So that's why it's really useful within my group, because people are sharing pictures and you can sort of see what I think or what other people think, and take away and so that you can then see where other people are coming from, and what they're dealing with, and where they're then going to get to, and then actually what's normal, because you see the same dogs coming up again each month, and they're maybe changing in how they were, and you can sort of see them and go and sort of be a bit more than objective with your own dog.
Must be reassuring as well to see the other dogs are losing the weight and how that's going along. So I've got Norwich Terriers, one of them snoring next to me at the moment, one female, one male, completely different body shapes entirely. Ripley's extremely petite and Merlin is slightly longer in the leg because he's got a lot of American Norwich, but totally different body shapes. But they are ridiculously fluffy because I do groom them, but I like their fur long, so I keep it longer, which generally would mean it's harder to see what their body looks like. I know that I can groom them enough to be able to take good pictures for a body condition score. And this is leading on to, we've got someone who's got a shaggy beardy, been described. So from their perspective, they often can't tell if their dog's put on a little bit of weight because the fur is there. So they find it really difficult to see the shape. Like I say, I know if I groom mine, if I do a quick groom, quick strip, I'll take a picture from the top and do the same at the side, and definitely make sure if I have them on a table and I get low, I can still make out where their waist is and I can still make out where the tuck goes. Do you have any tips for anyone with dogs with longer fur or shaggier fur?
Yeah, so you can take them swimming, put them in the bath, and then the hair, it's often, I didn't realise how thin they were or how big they were when they get wet. They look a very different shape, so that can really help. Obviously most of the time veterinary practices will have a set of scales there that you can use, and you don't even need to book an appointment. You can just go in there, but there's lots of reasons why that might not be the best place to go, because your dog might be a bit nervous, or you think, we've already been there too many times this month, or whatever it is. So pet shops can be really good as well. They can have scales in there that you can weigh, and if you're not sure about whether those scales are accurate, you can actually get one of the food bags that's unopened and put that on the scales and see if there's an error there, because at least they'll be reasonably accurate, because they're making sure that they're not giving you any more or any less than you're paying for in the bag. And if you're not quite convinced, you could try a couple of different companies there, but that will give you taking a 20-kilo bag, just make sure they're accurate, so you can do that when you're there. Obviously when you go into the pet shop, go with your mindset of, okay, I'm just going in to weigh my dog, I'm not going in to buy anything else, or whether that's food or treats or or toys or anything like that. But it can be a really useful place to go. If your dog is small enough, then you can weigh the pet yourself at home. So you can, if your dog is anything over 20 kilos, I'd be really careful about that. But if your dog is, you can hold them in your arms. You normally will need someone.
That size dog is very easy to pick up.
You normally still will need someone to help you, because if you're standing on the bathroom scales and then leaning forward with your dog to look, when you've got the dog in your arms, you can't look down and see what the weight is. So you do need someone to help you with that. But that can be a way, making sure that that can be a way of seeing where your dog is accurately. Because often when you put them on a weight loss food, or you're changing the food, or you're changing the amount you're feeding, you do need to weigh them every week or two. Wherever that may be. You can use other methods to estimate.
We use the Wii Fit. We use the Wii Fit board, so we weigh our
Wii Fit board,
and then we get the dog on with it slightly wider.
It's always a bit worrying, isn't it? After you've had a big Sunday lunch, when the Wii Fit board goes, "Are you carrying anyone today?" And you're like, "No, it's just me." Yeah, it normally says, doesn't it? "Are you carrying a pet?" It was quite we have one of those, and it was quite a good way of doing it.
I will mention real quickly, because I do use scales at pet shops. If I happen to be in one, I'll just pop them on. Also check that they're on 0.
Yeah.
Or even at the vets, because sometimes they're not. And you go, oh my God, their weight's gone up loads. Oh no, hang on.
Yeah. And make sure all 4 paws are standing on there, and things like that. And also make sure, if they're scared or they're pulling, or then that pulling of the dog, you're almost lifting off the weight. They need to sort of be relaxed and just sat without a loose lead.
And if you've got 2 dogs, make sure one of them isn't doing a paws up.
Yeah, exactly. You want to be, I guess it's a bit like us. Also make sure that you haven't been for a walk and their coat is wet, because, if they're wet, then, that it's just, just like us, making sure that ideally you do it at the same time of day, every day, that they've been to the toilet, or, whatever else. Did you know you lose weight in your sleep?
Really?
If you weigh yourself before you go to bed, and then you weigh yourself in the morning, and this is before you've been to the toilet or anything. You will still lose weight.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So and obviously before and after a full bladder or not, it can make a significant difference. But so that's why as well, if the dog has gone up by a little bit each week, don't worry too much, because it's that trend that we're looking at. It's not the the immediate weight on the scales necessarily.
While we're talking about weight, if I'm not interjecting too much, and this is a question from myself, with dogs, when they're losing weight, if they're starting to lose weight and you're working on the food they're getting and not having extra treats and starting to lose weight, and then you decide, okay, they're losing weight, now I'd like to increase their exercise, so then the dog's likely to put on muscle. Is that then going to start affecting the results of what we're looking at when we're looking at weight, with weight muscle?
It's very difficult to know, because we can't separate unless you're using a DEXA scanner, which actually measures body fat composition. Often what happens is the dogs will change shape when you start on a diet, and they won't necessarily change on the scales, and you sort of think, oh, nothing's happening, and then you think, oh, maybe are they putting muscle on and changing body condition, and obviously there is it's partly why body conditioning can be so useful, because often it's not just that a dog might be overweight, but they might be not that fit either. So that extra, fitness level that we notice, it's a bit of a vicious circle, isn't it? Because, they can't walk very fast, so I can't. But you can do the type of exercises you choose, can be then help with the weight loss. Because often it's not just like us, it's not just the running on the treadmill that will make the difference. It's that varied activity. Adding in different enrichment to help with for their food, and actually getting them to work for their food rather than just giving it them there, on a bowl. How many days in a week do you do you not feed them from a bowl? Because that can be just one simple change. You suddenly have to get creative with how you feed the dog.
I've seen dogs actually sitting down on their bum while they eat their food. It's like, you're not even standing or weight shifting, get your bum up. Exactly.
Or even dogs lying down while they're eating food. At least stand up. But if we're not asking them to do it, then why do I need to move? And I think that often it's that sort of the motivation. We sort of blame the dog for not having the motivation to do the exercise, and obviously you need to make sure there isn't any pain or anything involved. But at the end of the day, it has to come from us, the motivation to get them playing and doing things. Oh, my dog doesn't want to play. Well, have you tried what games have you tried? And using that, now I've seen a duck playing football. There is nothing that you can't do when you're using the right. I say rewards, but the right, the motivation to do that.
Absolutely. And how dogs play is very different. I'm on my 4th Norwich Terrier now. My first one, Cassie, wasn't big on toy. I mean, I've still got her first toy. I had her, I got her in 2000. And I still have somewhere knocking about her first ever toy with Squeak, and that's a terrier. That's how little she played. But she had to do play as part of her Good Citizen Silver. That was one of the exercises she needed to pass. So we did twists and spins and weave through my legs and, you know, chasing me a little bit. And that's how she did her play. She just didn't do toys and tuggy and that sort of thing. So it might not be a traditional play, but it's how she played. And I loved that because that was her little way of doing things. So yeah, like you say, there's always a way of finding something that a dog might like to do.
Yeah.
Somehow, even if it is playing football with a duck. Excellent.
So yeah, if you did, how else to keep on track of a weight? I guess there are other techniques as well. I go into more detail about where to measure regularly.
Yep.
That can be a really good, using a measuring tape. You know, you can actually sometimes get greater differences there. You know, whether you quicker than you can on the scales. So, you know, measuring around the waist, measuring around the chest. And sometimes around the neck as well. So it's you know, if you're noticing, oh, we're having to move this, that can be one of the first things people notice actually.
Yeah.
Oh, I've had to change, I've had to do the collar up because they're losing weight. I was like, oh, right, there we go then. You know, it's all the harness has changed. I've had to tighten the harness up, you know, because that's obviously, you know, that can be, you know, around the chest, that can be a really common area where dogs will hold their weight. So
yeah, definitely. It's not somewhere that you kind of focus on much, is it, the dog's neck, when you're trying to help them lose weight? But yeah, you suddenly sort of go, oh,
yeah,
okay, what's going, is it stretched? No, the dog's just losing weight. Brilliant. So while we're talking about losing weight, I just wanted to just briefly ask you about underweight dogs, because obviously overweight is something that's not really desired. Hello, Era. Yes. Don't you start, you noisy bugger. Underweight isn't, overweight obviously isn't a good thing at all, but it is possible for dogs to be very, very underweight, which then also isn't ideal for them. So is that something that people would be able to get some help with? Ideas?
Yeah, sure. It would be more from a personal one-to-one basis, because if you do find that your dog is very difficult to keep the weight on, actually, it's one of the easiest things you can do is actually just continue them on puppy food. And it's a little bit of a bugbear of mine, the whole, oh, well, it's suitable for all dogs of all ages. If you are trying to get your dog to lose weight, don't use an all dog age suitable for puppies diet, because that diet by definition it's going to be higher in some of the omega-3s but it's going to be higher in calories, because that dog will need to eat, you know, so that the puppies can eat enough of it to maintain their growth requirements. So no, it's not suitable for a dog that's finished its growth period. And also, you know, particularly if they're neutered, I was talking about this yesterday, about that often it's people choose a dog according to the lifestyle they want rather than the lifestyle they have. Yeah. But it's exactly the same in terms of diet and nutrition. They often choose a dog food that of the lifestyle that they want their dog to have. They want their dog to be doing canicross 3 or 4 times a week. And you know, so but working dog food, you know, is designed for dogs who are out working, you know, for 5 or 6 hours of the day. Yeah. You know, so if your dog is a working type breed, but does, you know, an hour in the morning, an hour at night, and then maybe a bit extra at weekends, that is, you do not need a working dog food. You will probably do absolutely fine using a diet that's designed for adult maintenance. Yeah, exactly. And that's apart from the fact of then, you know, how many treats and how many extras, and are you giving, you know, extra, oh, well, they won't really eat kibble, so we need to give them extra on top of it every single day. Or, well, you know, we give them raw food, but they also have, you know, these extra chews, you know, 3 or 4 times a week. And, you know, I mean, it's shocking to think of. And I think the number of calories in some of these chews, like the pizza sticks, like that, you know, it's skin or pig's ears. You think, oh, there's nothing really in them, but mostly it's skin, which is mostly, you know, they're based on sort of dried skin products, aren't they? And mostly that is really high fat percentage. So
which is why they like them so much.
That's why they like them so much. Tasty, even that simple thing. So I try and help people do some of the treat swaps. So actually using, you know, there's no one there advertising carrots or courgettes, popcorn for dogs. You know, well, unless some of the popcorn may be dipped in, you know, meaty flavors. But you know, the healthy treats that you can use, just like us, that you can use in your dog's diet that's safe to use. Why not? If your dog will do, you know, a trick for, you know, half a strawberry, then do that. You know, okay, it's got fructose and a little bit, you know, these things in, but also it's really, really high in water, really high in water content. So if you compare that to some of the biscuit treats that you buy, you know, just using those as an alternative. Obviously, we're avoiding anything that's going to be toxin or dangerous, like grapes and anything like that. But yeah, loads of different and experiment with different vegetables, because that can be a really good way of adding in that texture and that variety into their diet without spending a vast amount of money, and still giving them, you know, there's dogs that I've worked with, I absolutely love this, that they now salivate every time they cut a carrot up, because that's what they associate. Their associations,
that's brilliant.
They're really, dogs these days, don't know about us training the dogs, they're really good at training us.
Yes, they are.
When they need it, you know, when they want it, you know, and we have to we're the parent, we're the pet parent, we are the responsible ones. We need to take control of what goes in, because no one else is going to do it, you know.
No. And at the end of the day, the dogs aren't, unless you've got a Labrador here, generally speaking, they can't do the opening of cans and putting the kibble in and doing all that. That's up to us. So we are the ones that are responsible for giving them the things that are causing them to be overweight. Or if you have multiple people in your household that don't talk to each other,
and that isn't sometimes the most valuable thing you can do to help your weight on a diet. It's actually talk to that relative or that person to say, we started on a new regime, and actually giving them things that they can give to their dog, to your dog, that so give them, you know, that those treats. I've prepared these treats carefully, and it's a handful of kibble cut up inside some 1 centimeter cubes of chicken that isn't dried, that's just still, you know, fresh, so it flavors all of that other kibble that's there. The person then who is responsible for that, you know, cupboard love, has got something then to give, instead of, you know, cutting off that otherwise they'll just go behind your back.
They do,
you know, and give the extra toast and all the rest of it. But it's sometimes those things that you can change that are going to have more of an impact. Or, you know, even asking someone, oh yeah, I weigh out the food every day, I give this scoop, you know, a cup like that size of food. They've done studies into this that can vary by about 20%.
Wow.
If a scoop like that each day. So you could be overfeeding your dog by 20% every single day if you're not weighing out food. And that's even if the amount that you're giving your dog, you think you're giving your dog, is accurate. I mean, you know, there's a lot now of these mail order companies, isn't there? And that, you know, they're telling you how much to feed your dog each day, and they're delivering it before you've even know you're running near the end of the bag. And you know, in some ways you think, you know, you've given them all the details, you've told them how much exercise you do in a day, but is that how much you do every day, or is that in like a really good day, or what you want to be able to do, and actually work gets in the way? Oh, we forgot to take the walk tonight, or what, you know, something happened, family emergency or whatever it was, you know. So,
and often they're all very
based on
a specific,
you know,
aren't they?
Algorithm, and actually you need to be looking at what's happening with your dog in front of you. and how they are, you know, don't trust a food bag label. Don't trust a company who's telling you how much to feed your dog. They don't know your dog, no. You know, like you do. They don't know whether they are, you know, and I guess those dogs that are, you know, on the thinner side, often it's to do with their anxiety levels or other sorts of things. If they're, you know, yeah, there can be disease processes. So, you know, it can be overactive hormones, as well as underactive hormones that can do that. So it is important to think about, you know, screening tests and those sorts of things before you start on a program. But sometimes, you know, it's useful to do that once you've already made an impact on, you know, the treats or the exercise, or you picking different exercises you can do. So it's sort of knowing, you know, knowing where to make a start, but not using that as an excuse for procrastination and not actually making a start on the process.
That's it. No, we have Aero, the Labrador. She has her kibble weighed out, put in a tub where she can't reach, and that's her amount. So she gets a bit tipped in the morning and then a bit tipped in later in the day, and once it's gone, it's gone.
You don't have to, if you haven't got time in the morning to weigh it out once a week. People, you know, freezer bags, having it all there, and sometimes actually keeping some of that back for use of, you know, when you're training, when you're outside on walks and those sorts of things. That can make a really big difference to, you know, not feeling like, and like you say, one day, like we were talking about, one day not giving any of that food in the bowl in the morning, but going out and using it, you know, separately. And
I mean, Erin gets hers in a snuffle mat in the afternoons, so when I'm taking all the dogs and I go to training, she needs to be just relaxing in her crate while I'm working. So I've got a snuffle mat that actually has a drawstring on it, so I can pour the food in it. It's got millions of little bits of material, drawstring it so it's all in there ready, and I stick her in a crate, pop it in, undo it, and off she goes. And that keeps her busy, and it stops her wolfing it down as quickly as possible. So it's feeding her and it's giving her some enrichment at the same time.
Yeah, exactly. You know, and using those ways that are going to fit in with your lifestyle can be really, really useful.
That's it. Yeah, absolutely, definitely does. Yes, and yeah, obviously my dogs are raw fed, so their food is weighed out every single meal. But do check that your partner hasn't changed what your scales are showing, because they're weighing out something for one of the birds, and then you come back and you go, this seems like a lot of food here. What's going on? Oh, you've changed the thing, I see.
And these days, you know, there are a lot more things that you can use, still use raw food in enrichment toys.
Oh yeah, definitely.
So, you know, because you might not, obviously you're not going to be carrying that around in your pocket on a walk, but you can use little plastic containers that deliver a little bit of that out, or you can use actually put the raw food inside, like a Kong or something like that, and then freeze it, and then, you know, have it so it's going to take then a lot longer to get through than it would.
And even some of the interactive toys that we've got, because they're plastic and they're dishwasher safe, you can actually put bits, if it's a mince or a chunk, you can put little bits in, and once they finish with it, you just stick it in the dishwasher, so then you know it's nice and clean at the end of it as well. So yeah, loads of ways. And to be fair, there's nothing I like more with my guys actually than seeing them laying down outside with a bit of a, you know, a duck wing or a lamb rib or something like that as part of their meal, and just really getting in there and enjoying themselves with it. And yeah, they really have a lovely time with it, so it gives them something to do and they're happy, and it's just a nice way for them to eat, so it gives them a bit of enrichment quite naturally at the same time. In fact, Aero has had the odd rib here and there, and I just take that out of her allowance.
Yeah, exactly. So that, you know, it's something that they can have as it helps with the enrichment, doesn't it? It keeps them...
That's it. Yeah, it keeps them busy, really getting in there and enjoying themselves. I'm just checking what so underweight dogs we've already talked about. I think that was all the questions that I had. On accountability, that was, I wrote down accountability when you mentioned accountability, So I might be going slightly off a bit, but just to go back to your group that you have on Facebook, even if you're not, because I don't very often post things in groups, just because I scroll very quickly while I'm in the middle of waiting for something to do something, and then go, oh, like, and then I come out of it thinking, oh, I'll go back to that later. I never do. I'm rubbish at remembering anything. But seeing other people's posts, oh, this week I did this is this, and we did this with the dog, and last week it was this much the weight, and this week it's this, actually I find gives me accountability. Oh, I must remember to go and do that. I'll go and do that now. And it reminds me that this person's managing to do it each week or every couple of weeks. So actually, yeah, I need to get onto that as well. So following someone else's journey actually can give you a little bit of accountability as well. Yeah. And I found that really, really helpful.
And also that motivation as well, you know, to hear, other stories about they can do it with we had a dog that Lexi only has 3 legs, and she wasn't hugely over where she needed to be, but obviously because there's that risk of overload with the 3 remaining limbs, it's even more important for her to keep slim. So that was really inspiring for people to see that. So
yeah, if she can do it, it's no excuse for the rest of us.
Really, what's nice is as well, there's no judgment, because a lot of Facebook groups you go on with if you post a picture of you'll have one, it might spark the raw kibble debate, or to what are you feeding them? You don't want to be doing that, you want to be doing this. Also, if there's thought to be over 60% of dogs in the UK now that are over their ideal weight. So if you're going in a random dog forum, 60% of those owners will have dogs that are over their ideal weight. So is that necessarily the place where you want to go for advice?
No. You'll get half the people will be saying, oh, well, that dog looks fine to me, that's how my dog looks, because they don't know. And then you'll get the people saying, oh, that's really cruel, and then you feel like you can't ask for help because
and equally, if you're looking around the dog park as well, it can be really disconcerting. You think, well, my dog doesn't look any different to them particularly, but just being able to say, right, well, what I'm going to do is the best thing for my dog, and go from there, really.
There's some, I won't name breeds, but there are some breeds, different sizes, small through to large, that in the last few years we're so used to seeing them as more of a box shape and not having that nice slim waist, that actually when you see an example of that breed that has got a nice shape to it, they stand out so much. But you get people going, oh,
sad, isn't it? Well, I'll name
they're a bit underweight.
I know that are highly prone to gaining weight and going to be much more likely. Labrador retrievers, flat coat retrievers, beagles, unfortunately pugs, and French bulldogs. That's what I'm thinking of. But as well, not just that, French bulldogs, pugs, and boxers. What's difficult about those breeds is that it's not until they're very much more at the top end, 8, 9 out of 9 body condition score, that they actually look like they're overweight, because they keep that sort of waistline. And they've got a big sort of heavier chest anyway. But if they are kept that little bit above, it can have massive impacts on their breathing. And mean that they can cope a lot less well in heat, because their airway is narrowed anyway. That extra weight, they often carry it around the neck anyway, and so that can have a really big impact. There are breed specific, some breed specific body condition score charts. University of Cambridge produced one, because they do quite a lot of work on BOAS, and which is brachycephalic airway syndrome, where dogs might need laser to shorten their soft palate, or those sorts of things. They actually produce that, which you can find online as well. I think I posted that within my group so people can see that. But because they have, and actually it varies even between the males and the females. They can be a very different shape. Knowing the differences between your breed can be really important.
Definitely can. Okay, so really enjoy that, actually, because I'm in the area of the fitness side of things, and I get people saying I want to join agility classes because I want my dog to lose weight, and I say no. This isn't how your dog's overweight. The last thing they need is jumping over stuff and landing heavily the other side.
I mean, hoopers, I would say, is a really, really good one.
That's a nice one. Yeah,
and actually obedience and going to a weekly class, or trick training, or whatever it is, because it's giving your dog and yourself different skills and abilities, and different games you can play that you can, often it's as much as what you do in between the classes that's going to have as much impact as that weekly class. But at least that weekly class, that's you're interacting with your dog in a different way, rather than just, the typical sort of cuddling up on the sofa and giving them back rub and things. Or just the same old route that you always do. You're interacting with them, in a different way, and that can really help sometimes with learning how to respond to your dog, not just thinking about, to get them to do this, I need to give them this treat or this. And actually learning about luring and those sorts of things that's it.
Now, we do a lot of encouragement on food is handy because it's a real quick thing, but we encourage people to also talk to them and fuss them, get a toy if they like to play, and have a little game in between, and actually be really interactive. And it's not just about the food. And we do, so it's not a huge amount of time, but we do sometimes have people saying, I'm really worried about using treats for training because I don't want my dog to gain weight. And I'll speak to my dogs and say, well, they treat train all the time and they're very good weight. Because they're moving, unless you're doing lots and lots of stays and then giving them huge jackpots at the end, they're moving the whole time and their tail's going and they're going, what's next? And especially if you've got dogs that are learning a few favourite things, they end up going for the whole repertoire for one treat. They're actually moving quite a bit. And don't tend to put on a huge amount from it.
Once your dog has learned a certain thing, I mean, it's always, he always has a treat at bedtime, or whatever it is. It's like they don't need that treat. It's something, a reinforcer that you're using, which is not necessarily needed. And who needs to
or treat after dinner? I know people that actually their dog has their meal and then they go to the cupboard to get the dog a treat for eating their meal.
And
they won't lose weight. I
think we do like our dogs that finish everything in the bowl as well, but it's not necessarily unfortunately neutering tends to have this different effect on. It's often it's not that they're being offered more food, it's just that they're become much more food orientated, and their behavior changes around the food, and they become more focused on that because they haven't got other hormones that are focusing their brain on other things, and it's that change in behavior that makes the impact on the amount of food, on what they're taking in, rather than necessarily anything that's different about significant changes. Yes, it changed their metabolic rate slightly, but they think it's actually a lot more to do with behavior. It's a bit like us, if there's that, if we've got next to the kettle, we've got our tea bags and then the biscuit tin, it's just behavior. You'll do that, but actually moving that somewhere else and putting, the little cubes of carrot or strawberry or whatever it is, they're ready to give instead, is you're far more likely to do that. So it's using things that in your normal life that you can add.
That's a really good point, actually. The patterns that we have, and maybe don't realize we've got into.
Exactly. So it's one of the first things you do, really, doing a food diary, just to see exactly, writing down, everyone's always very detailed about what actual food they're giving, but then actually when do you give those extra things, and sometimes concentrating on that first rather than the food can be a really good sort of way into adjusting things.
That's it. They could be on the best food in the world, but if you give them a dentist stick every time they come in from the garden, that could be somewhere to start. Yeah,
they design the density sticks at a certain calorie level. You know, when they say on the side of the packet, this dog can have 2 of these a day.
yeah.
They designed that amount to be the exact amount that they're allowed within their treat allowance for that dog. But then that means you can't give them any other treats at all, ever.
Yeah.
Is that the only thing you're ever going to give that's normally, you know, disintegrated? Very little chewing goes on. Within about a minute. So yeah, lots of other things you can do that eat instead.
That's fantastic. So could you, I'm going to pop it when I do the replay and send that out. I'm going to give everyone the information anyway, but could you give us the name of your Facebook group again, please?
So my Facebook group is called Slimline Canine, Slim Solutions for Overweight Dogs. It's a really friendly, happy, jolly, you know, not just moaning about what's happening, right? You know, it's all about the solutions. And I have got a special offer at the moment on my website membership, which is www.theslimpetvet.co.uk. And if you put in, this is only going to be lasting until the end of April, 30th of April at midnight. If you put in 1 free month, capital O, capital F, capital M, then people can gain access to that for a whole month for free, and they get the first 4 weeks of the program and everything there. There's a calculator on there, so they know they can put in their body condition score of their dog, they can put in their weight, and then it will tell you exactly how many calories feed your dog each.
Wow, that's brilliant. That's definitely worth looking at, isn't it? Fantastic. Well, I think what we'll do is we'll stop there and I'll get everything sent out to everyone. So you'll be getting some visitors to the group, I should imagine, in the next few hours, possibly. And thank you so much for being here. Really, really great to talk to you. And yeah, hang on, we've got an arrow coming in again. I think she's bored. Are you bored? Oh. Yeah, poor puppy, aren't you? Can you? Brilliant. Can you?
Oh, hello.
Stop sniffing the computer. So yes, thank you so much. Really, really, really interesting talking to you, as it always is when I see your posts in the groups as well. And I can also confirm how friendly the group is because I'm it. So I know it. Yeah. So yes, thank you. We'll finish on there and look forward to speaking to you at another point.
Yes, good. All right. Thank you so much. I'll see you again soon.
Take care now.